So if we were to have, I don't know, like the latest thing that I've seen is like the ultraviolet cameras.
Yeah, you can take a regular camera and do that. That's not a problem.
Would we see Joel sitting with you, or?
Oh, you can ask him. Normally in infrared he can be seen. He can be
Really?
seen in infrared.
I don't know.
Yeah.
We never.
Yeah, I asked him.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, let's just ask him.
Without you. Okay.
I don't remember.
It was a personal moment.
Joel, if you could appear in front of our cameras, would you be easier seen in the infrared spectrum? Yes. How about the UV spectrum? No. We understand that consciousness is fluctuating. It varies quite a bit, and as we get closer to the microwave end of the infrared, we start to pick up on brighter and more intense consciousness. Now in the UV area, we see it, but we only see a lower based form of energy. And again, most of our equipment is looking for energy. We're not looking for consciousness. But in his case, if he could manifest, he could be seen in the infrared.
Are you hot, Joel?
That's
Whoa, that's a little creepy.
he's etheric. He's just kind of like,
he's
you
just,
know.
he's just energy. He's
yeah.
energy.
That was a compliment. He's
But-
not a fan.
But you know, because we try to correlate everything into human terms, we like to know if Joel has a sense of humor, or if Joel can take a joke,
Right,
or
just-
Joe
you know,
wear clothes.
you know, or what he thinks about us. And sometimes because we're having this conversation, and it's like I will make a joke. You know, one time I made this joke of like saying like, okay, let's do a television show and bring back all these old actors from the 80s or bands from the 80s and make them actors and put them in
Please
this
don't.
like new X-Files movie or whatever. And Joel sit there and say, no, I don't get that. He goes, no, that's a bad idea.
Right.
And it's like, and he doesn't know we're actually doing a joke or not. And so sometimes I say, oh, that's just a joke, Joel. That's just an idea. But he doesn't. He has a sense of humor. But she had a guy named Samuel, and he didn't have any sense of humor whatsoever. And being a little Irish, I'm sitting there going, I'm cracking a joke, every now and then. And then he just wouldn't get it. He just would just sit there, and he just doesn't understand what I'm talking about. They're very dry, very dry.
He was. Samuel was.
And so
but he was
Joel's
very accurate. He was very good.
Oh yeah. I'm not saying he wasn't accurate, but Joel's a little more. Hey, I can roll with this. I kind of understand your plight down there on Earth, dealing with what you're dealing, and he's kind of our eyes. So it's like we're on this side of the fence, and he's on that side of the fence, and I'm sitting there saying, "Are there trees on your side of the fence?" And he'll say, "Yeah, there's trees." So I'm finding out what was on his side of the fence and what's on my side of the fence that I cannot see.
Is he
And
ever
so-
wrong?
No, not to. Okay, here's the problem. If I don't ask the question correctly, verbatim, the answer could be wrong because it's my fault because I'm not asking the answer correctly. But normally, what it is because time is a confluence of all of our agreeing to it. Things change, parameters change.
Right.
And I'm just going to point this out. To Joel is more accurate in our timeline. If we could stretch it out to a linear time, he's more accurate in our timeline. But God help Cynthia Fay. Cynthia Fay can sit here and tell you 10 things, and they will not be in the sequence that she will tell you. They'll be random, and one will happen in 2 weeks, another will happen in 6 months, and some may take even longer time. But they will happen. So they're pulling from the same source. The idea is the timeline. And we have done timeline tests before. We've actually, because I was driving home from work one afternoon and I said, man, something's really wrong. It's just like, I don't believe George Bush is president of the United States. I'm driving home and I said, I can't believe this. And then so I called Vicki and I said, Vicki, is George Bush really the president of the United States? And she would douse and it was yes. But I said, did he win the election? And it was no. How can he be president of the United States and not win the election? And then we find out years later that there were 300 votes off, and they really went to Al Gore. And then the whole thing was he won the popular vote. Al Gore won the popular vote, but he did not win the electoral college. And so,
Yeah, why do we still have that?
and so, so I'm sitting there saying, did Al Gore win the election? And it's yes, but he's not president. So I got to formulate a question to find out really what's going on.
Right.
And so Joel's not really been wrong. It's just that I've not understood the full parameters of what I'm asking about, and then go
He
from
keeps, I
there.
don't know, Michael keeps track of,
Yeah.
my, what I have, what.
Yeah, 50% is my head, and the other 50% we write down, because I can't remember them all. But we try to develop a sequence of events, a sequence of what's going to happen next, how is it going to happen, and what's going to happen next, and then we monitor that, and that's how we monitor the timeline. There have been many times to
How about my
where
accuracy? You keep track?
yeah, I keep track of accuracy, and we're still in the between 85 and 90 percentile. And there was an event which we had dowsed, and we could douse this again. It may or may not have happened. We dowsed that in the end of October of '09, there would be a meteorite strike in China that would knock out power and disrupt communications and things like that. The meteorite strike did not happen, but there was an earthquake in the exact province, the exact 2 days after we had dowsed it would actually happen. That killed 400 cattle, put like 30,000 people out of power, disrupted transportation and roads. Everything we had dowsed, but it was an earthquake and not a meteorite strike. So we're seeing that the events in time are like rocks in this river, and they don't move, but you go closer to them and you'll kind of go around them because they're kind of more fixed than anything else. And so we kind of navigate our lives around these fixed moments in time. Some things can't be changed. Like there was a gentleman by the name of Stephen Gibbs. He's invented a time travel device, and he says every time you go back in time and try to stop JFK from being killed, it just can't be done. And so JFK in our timeline was meant to be killed at that moment, at that time. So there are certain things that are fixed that we can't change, and we don't know the real reasons to it. You know, so maybe it broke.
That's
Maybe
the technical
Palladians-
problem.
Yeah.
I got a question. You say everything is fixed and we cannot change.
No. There are certain things that are fixed,
Okay, certain
and we're
things-
navigating through them.
Certain things that are fixed.
Mhm.
Yet we have the freedom of choice and can change
Exactly.
a fixed item.
Right. We have freedom of choice to navigate our ships on the river.
So
to maneuver
what
around.
if JFK was fixed to die? The guy that killed him was supposed to kill him.
Mhm.
What if the guy that killed him got there with the gun and decided,
Not to kill.
okay, what if I'm not supposed to kill him?
Right.
Yet JFK was supposed to die.
Mhm.
That's why I don't get the
Question.
freedom of choice and then the destiny. Because if destiny
Mhm.
is, here's your set path, here's what you're going to do no matter what, why would the choice come in there to, okay, well, you can do this, but if you do this, this is what's going to happen and it's supposed to. But you can also do this still. I don't understand that. That's where my whole destiny thing.
Yeah, I know. I agree with you. I have the same argument. I mean, that's the same argument I have. Lee Harvey Oswald.
Not quite in those technical terms.
Yeah, did not have, yeah.
Right.
Destiny, like I said, it goes back to the Taoist belief that our road has been set before us, but yet we have the illusion that we can change it. And I sit there and I think there is a level of what we can change and what we can't, and there are certain levels of destiny that we have to fulfill. You know, I argue with that every day of my life. You know, what if Sirhan had not gotten hired by the cooks to work in that hotel before Bobby Kennedy walked through the kitchen? You know, what if? And you can play that what if scenario for a million different directions, but the event happened. And that's why when you work a scenario, you work forward. Okay, this is what happened. Now we have to work a scenario on how to prevent it from ever happening again. And so we work out these scenarios on, okay, when A happens, B must happen, C must happen, and we create time in a concrete, fixed way so no one has a choice and no destiny is disrupted. But at the same time, that's because we're running this scenario.